a couple of humanitarian Doctors Without Borders have been actually expelled as well a while ago. So you can see it coming. So now that's what the back and forth is. Actually, the UN Secretary General just said had a press conference last night as well. So that's the hot news on the ground.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Well, Clubhouse is having the recording function. I'm sure you all know that already. And the universal search, it's happening soon. It's happening today, actually.
So it's another country in the same direction as many others, where you're only allowed to say something when you please the government. If you don't please the government, you are thrown out. It's not a tech company here. It is just the UN officials.
Ah. Okay. So
They are UN officials and they are high-level officials. So yeah, this has been really festering for a couple of months. Well, months, I would say, that since the war started. So yeah, they are very high-level UN officials, and they are having the back and forth. So we'll see what's gonna happen.
I think Singapore is also going to start a new law. It's called the FICA, basically to prevent foreign influence.
Like, from who?
Well, they are probably going to screen. I don't know how they are going to do it, but they are trying to prevent foreign influence. I think pretty similar to what China is doing, but I don't know exactly. But it's called FICA, FICA. I'm going to DM to you the new act.
In Sweden, that means having a coffee together.
Having a coffee and a little snack, yes.
And together. So that one's sort of the opposite.
It's so funny, Sarah. That was immediately what came to my mind when she said fika.
Yeah, fika is one of the strongest words in the whole Nordic language. It's one of the strongest concepts in Scandinavia, is the concept of having coffee together.
And a very friendly one.
Yeah, it's like...
Same thing happened to the Apple when it introduced the Siri. It was the Japanese was Siri something else, I guess. Not the good word.
Okay, so are we ready? Where's the audio effects? Where's my horn? There it is. Here we go. First, happy Friday, October. It's October, everybody. How did we do that? Q4, here we go. October, November, December. Q3 is over with a fresh quarter. And we start off Q4 with this headline from TechCrunch, and my God, everyone's covering this one. And holy cow, this is an unusual number of people tweeting about this one. Senators grilled Facebook executive Antigone Davis at a Senate hearing about Instagram's impact on teens and were frustrated by her reticence to answer questions directly. That's the headline from TechCrunch. I wonder what Japan, even Japan Today wrote about it. U.S. lawmakers grill Facebook on spiking teen mental health fears. New York Times headline says there's nothing to like in Facebook's plans to hook our kids. And BBC headline says Facebook grilled over mental health impact on kids. Engadget.
They were asking.
Yeah.
They were asking her questions like, if you read the article in detail, it gets quite intense because they were and they had all the right to, because if you do a little bit of DD on the article, it's horrendous, the sort of data that's been kept. But they were asking her questions essentially that led to, for example, for lack of a better word, basically asking Facebook, well, how many suicides has Facebook caused over the past year? So, I mean, they're very, very sharp questions to the point of how many people do you think have gotten manic depressive over the past year? How has your algorithm tweaked that to be able to lead to the ads over the past 5 years? And so on and so forth. So it was, it was slapping Facebook in the face 10 times over and over, and it was horrendous for Facebook. I'll just leave it at that. Sorry.
So I'm trying to think which publication would likely have the most balanced take on all this. Perhaps Japan Today would have the least skin in this game. Associated Press, that would probably be the most neutral, I imagine, because New York Times is a little slanted on this issue. You see what I'm saying? The Guardian's quite slanted on this particular issue. Wired's a little too pro-techy from time to time. So everyone wrote about it. I'm just wondering which version of the article I should dig into. So I've got the Toronto Star. I have no idea which way they lean on these things. Facebook exec defends policies towards teens on Instagram. There, that's an incredibly neutral headline from the Associated Press. Let's try this one, because this is the issue: is these journalism in 2021. They've got angles now that it's not just reporting. They have narratives that they want to enforce. The Wall Street Journal, most of all, has a slant on this issue because they feel like, and to some degree, they're correct in thinking that this Senate hearing is a direct result of one of the articles that they published last week. And so they have skin in this game. They've got a dog in this fight. So anyway, reading from Associated Press, assuming that it would be the most neutral on this, and given the title of the headline, certainly seems to be Facebook exec defends policies towards teens on Instagram. That's exactly what did happen. And it says, facing outrage over its handling of internet research on harm to teens from Instagram, a Facebook executive is telling Congress that the company is working to protect young people on its platforms, and she disputes the way the recent newspaper story describes what the research shows. Yep, that's about as neutral way to phrase it as you possibly can. So let's continue with this one. Here's a quote. We have put in place multiple protections to create safe and age-appropriate experiences for people between the ages of 13 and 17, Antigone Davis, Facebook's head of global safety, said in a written testimony Thursday for a Senate Commerce subcommittee. Have a mosquito flying by. So Facebook has removed more than 600,000 accounts on Instagram from June to August this year that didn't meet the minimum age requirement of 13, Davis says. Davis was summoned by the panel as scrutiny over how Facebook handles information that could indicate potential harm for some of its users, especially girls, while publicly downplaying the negative impacts. The revelations in the report by the Wall Street Journal, based on internal research leaked by a whistleblower at Facebook, have set off a wave of anger from lawmakers, critics of big tech, child development experts, and parents. Yes, so this is all actually very good reporting. These are what's a very neutral account of what's going on here. The outcry prompted Facebook to put on hold its work on kids' version of Instagram. Yes, which the company says it meant mainly for tweens aged 10 to 12, but it's just a pause. For some of the Instagram-devoted teens, the peer pressure generated by the visually focused app led to mental health and body image problems, and in some cases, eating disorders and suicidal thoughts. It was Facebook's own researchers who alerted the social network giant's executives to Instagram's destructive potential. Davis says in her testimony that Facebook has a history of using its internal research as well as outside experts and groups to inform changes to its apps with the goal of keeping young people safe on the platform and ensuring that those who aren't old enough to use them do not. Here's a quote. This hearing will examine the toxic effects of Facebook and Instagram on young people and others, and is one of several that will ask tough questions about whether big tech companies are knowingly harming people and concealing that knowledge, says Richard Blumenthal, Democrat of Connecticut, chairman of the Consumer Protection Subcommittee, said in a statement, revelations about Facebook and others have raised profound questions about what can and should be done to protect people. Blumenthal and Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, the panel's senior Republican, also plan to take testimony next week from a Facebook whistleblower on October 5th. Believed to be the person who leaked the Instagram research documents to the Journal. That will be juicy. Despite the well-documented harms, Facebook executives have consistently played down Instagram's negative side and have forged ahead with work on Instagram for Kids until now. And on Monday, Instagram head Adam Mosseri said in a blog post that the company will use its time out to work with parents experts and policymakers to demonstrate the value and need for this product. Now I'm realizing now do they say what really happened in this hearing? Already in July, Facebook said it was working with parents. The focused outrage transcending party and ideology contrasts with lawmakers' posture towards social media generally, which splits Republicans and Democrats. Republicans accuse Facebook, Google, and Twitter without evidence of deliberately suppressing conservative, religious, and anti-abortion views. Democrats train their criticism mainly on hate speech, misinformation, and other content on the platforms that can incite violence, keeping people from voting or spreading falsehoods about coronavirus. The bipartisan pileup against Facebook proceeds as the tech giant awaits a federal judge's ruling on a revised complaint from the FTC in an epic antitrust case, and as it tussles with the Biden administration over its handling of coronavirus misinformation. Meanwhile, groundbreaking legislation has advanced in Congress that would curb the market power of Facebook and other tech giants like Google, Amazon, and Apple, and could force them to untie their dominant platforms from their other lines of business. For Facebook, that could target Instagram and social media juggernaut valued at $100 billion that it has owned since 2012, as well as messaging apps like WhatsApp. So that's the setup, but did they really not cover what happened.
You need one of the bad journalists, Tyler, that will only they'll only give you quotes from the hearing.
Yes. Okay. So
Bloomberg.
Okay, let's try the Bloomberg one. Here we go. Facebook prioritizes greed over children. There's a headline. That sounds balanced. Hearing follows report that Facebook knew of harms to teens. Senators say pause on Instagram for kids isn't good enough. And Facebook has shown us once again that it's incapable of holding itself accountable, said Blumenthal, the chair of the Senate Commerce Committee. And here's another quote. It's why we conduct this research to make our platforms better, to minimize the bad experience, minimize the bad, maximize the good, and to proactively identify where we can improve. Facebook is committed to building better products for young people and doing everything we can to protect their privacy, safety, well-being, and blah, blah, blah. And here's Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn, who's the head Republican on the panel. She says, "You've lost the trust and we do not trust you." That's a perfectly apt statement. There you go. That's some straight Tennessee talk for you right there. That is the issue at the end of the day, that people don't trust Facebook, and certainly politicians don't trust Facebook. Essentially nobody does, other than people who work at Facebook. So the article, and here's another quote. "The combination of today's testimony and the evidence from the whistleblower on Tuesday will certainly bolster momentum very powerfully," Blumenthal told Bloomberg, referring to next week's public hearing with a former Facebook executive who provided company documents to the Journal. "There's certainly an urgency to the problem. If there's one person on our platform who attributes their suicidal ideation to our platform, that's one too many," Davis said. "We care deeply about it." And other quotes here. Blumenthal told reporters Wednesday that the pause in Instagram for kids is totally insufficient. It's a mockery of what they should be doing, which is to say, stop exploiting children and cease abusive practices that puts profits over children's safety. And in addition to testifying on October 5th, the whistleblower is also going to be on 60 Minutes on Sunday, on October 3rd. Even before their Senate hearing. So all of America will be tuning in for that one. So that's the Bloomberg article. And the what's the word I'm looking for? The hotness coming from the senators, where they're, verbally expressing how upset they are and how expressing the mistrust that people have, as you just heard the quotes. There was a really interesting moment in the exchange where the lead senator said, is it Finta? Where he says, "Hey, Instagram, are you going to stop this Finta stuff?" And Finta is just an internal slang term at the company for fake accounts. And he unknowingly assumes that it's obviously some bad thing based on, it was kind of revealing of the, kind of exposed the insincerity of the bluster from the senators. If somebody can find the video of that part of the exchange, it was quite revealing, because the senators getting very hot under the collar about, so are you going to stop FINTA or not? Not
So
even knowing what it is.
actually, it's Finsta, and it's
Finsta,
not just
yes.
internal. It's not just internal. It's fake Instagram.
Right. So Finsta means a fake Instagram account. And he got fake rage over it because he was read somewhere that it's really bad. And he's like, you need to stop these. Are you going to stop these or not? And she's like, I'm kind of confused what the hell you're talking about. Finsta, are you going to stop these or not? And she's like, well, sir, that just means it's a fake account.
Does it seem kind of suspicious that there's literally a platform that's programming and attacking our kids, and they're looking at the one that probably has more controls than others? Like, shouldn't they be looking at TikTok right now?
Don't get me started on that one. Holy cow. This is a great point.
Why isn't there a hit piece on TikTok right now that they're making our kids go destroy property and do stupid shit? Like, where's that?
Okay, so I wonder what degree of people even know what we have discovered with that.
I do.
Right?
I mean, the teachers are out there crying and screaming it out, and like you're hearing it in California, that teachers are breaking down crying, saying, "I can't believe you're destroying our fucking property. What's wrong with you kids?"
Yeah, well, there's viral videos now of in America. The leader of the school is called the principal, and usually in the morning when kids get into school, the principal has an announcement for the day, and they read a couple of important announcements to the whole school over the intercom system. Hello, good morning, boys and girls. Just a quick few announcements. This is American schools every morning. And these principals are losing their heads screaming at the kids about, destroying the bathrooms. And so they're having to come up with very creative solutions, like remove the doors from the bathrooms so that you don't have privacy in the bathroom to destroy the bathroom. And, you can, it's quite an issue. And yeah, they're destroying school bathrooms. And it's even spread into, it's kind of it's become a contest to see who can cause the most damage at their school's bathrooms. And it's spread beyond the bathrooms into the people. Some kids were removing the grass off of the soccer fields and documenting it and showing it's like this, social contest to see who can destroy their school the most. And that this is a fair point, which is TikTok is being weaponized by some other state who has some interesting ties to TikTok. Namely, they're on the board. They're a major investor. There's a country, I'll let you guess which one, who's a major investor in TikTok, who simultaneously is incredibly focused and concerned about controlling the algorithms in their country and making sure there's no negative content in their country. And yet simultaneously, the biggest viral meme of the past month has been destroying American schools. So, and yet Facebook is in the hot seat for doing research, discussing the research.
That said, 2/3 of the people actually didn't get suicidal thoughts from it, but they just framed it as 1/3 instead, and people jumped on that.
I mean, there is. I mean, I don't have a problem with Facebook being in the hot seat. It's a good, healthy debate and discussion to have, and it's good to continue to put pressure on Facebook so that they know, hey, people don't trust you. You need to do everything you can. I think they're getting the message. They're pausing Facebook for kids. They're doing the right thing. They're backstepping. They're responding appropriately to the new elevated pressure to be a good actor. So,
Tyler,
yes,
Tyler, pausing Facebook for kids is like, I mean, it's not
Instagram.
I mean, even Instagram, there's 100 ways to get around that, right? And then the other thing with that is with Facebook Reels coming up, that's just another TikTok disaster waiting to happen in the US.
Well, yes and no, because TikTok is, the question is, who's controlling these algorithms?
Sure, but I get that.
Yeah.
But Facebook Reels will be the same thing, regardless. I mean, whoever is controlling that algorithm, if it's Facebook or whoever, as long as the motive is greed. Let's assume for a second the motive is greed by Facebook, right? Facebook Reels is going to do the same thing, isn't it?
Not necessarily. In one app, you have the CCP controlling the algorithm, trying to dismantle America.
Sure.
They've used it as a weapon to destroy America. That I don't think Facebook is intentionally trying to destroy America with their algorithm.
This is like Breakfast Club. You're either going with Emilio or you're going with Judd.
But Facebook has shown
totally
that they are willing to let our elections be hijacked. So I'm not sure where we draw these lines.
That's a fair point, Eli. It's Facebook has a lot to do to earn back the trust. I mean, they have mistrust from, in the case of the U.S., it's a very polarized political landscape. It's this left and right. And Facebook has managed to piss off both sides, which is quite an accomplishment. And both sides don't trust Facebook for totally different reasons, which that AP article perfectly outlined. And so how do you earn back the trust of both? That's going to be an incredibly difficult feat to do, because if you start addressing the issues of one side, the other side feels like you're helping their enemy. So it's a political minefield to try and rectify the situation that they're in at the moment.
But isn't this like fundamentally a problem of lack of regulation? Because it really shouldn't be down to the company itself. I mean, the underlying business model is, you get more clicks and then your algorithm steers more stuff towards you that you've clicked on. So, I mean, if you don't have underlying regulation, Facebook then could tighten up what it's doing, but then all the kids will go to some other platform. So it doesn't really solve the underlying problem, right?
It's a great point. Yeah, the algorithms are optimized for engagement, I think, you said clicks, which is fair. I think to really give it a little additional context is the algorithms are optimized for engagement. And the problem is, fundamentally, let's just be very clear, people are more engaged with toxic content. And they don't have the self awareness, enlightenment to not engage with negative content. The same situation's happening with food. The same situation was happening before Facebook. This isn't a uniquely Facebook problem. This is a human problem. Facebook just makes it. Let's imagine this. Prior to Facebook, you had magazines and TV, and the amount of content you could consume was relatively slow, right? So, and then food, we've been consuming food at the same rate as we always have. We were consuming content at a rather steady state until social media. Social media comes in, and now this is like intravenous direct feed. Multiple intravenous direct feeds is a new way of consuming at a hyper rate. Right. So we're consuming junk food, and that's bad enough, and we're getting obese already, right? We're getting obese physically with junk food, and we're getting obese mentally with junk content even before social media. And then social media comes out, and it's a new extreme way to hyper consume that same junk food. And so it's on the food equivalent. Imagine there was a new way to consume food where you intravenously plug in lots of stuff into you. And of course, it's up to you what you're going to feed yourself. But knowing this problem that humans have, this is not a Facebook issue. The core issue here is humans consume crap and cannot control themselves. And that's why we have an obesity epidemic. And that's why we have, to some extent, an opioid epidemic. Of course, the doctors and the pharmaceutical companies play into this. But my point is that we will self-sabotage left to our own devices. And now that there's a hyper efficient way to consume, we need to be very careful people aren't consuming crap, because that's what they're going to do. And it's not essentially Facebook's fault that they're doing that, but Facebook needs to take a sort of responsibility to not become an accessory in that self-sabotage and a enabler of causing mental, emotional obesity. So, yeah, that's ultimately what it comes down to. I think perhaps we need to take a posture of, hey, Facebook, we really need you to think holistically here. Your tool is super, super, super powerful. It's the equivalent of allowing multiple intravenous tube feeds simultaneously, and most people are going to try and feed themselves French fries and chocolate shakes. So, could we please be very careful about what people can order on the menu? Well, the problem with that is it turns into freedom of speech. Essentially, are you going to say people aren't allowed to drink soda, or people aren't allowed to eat ice cream, or people aren't allowed to? How do we do this? So we're going to police people's media diets now. Well, China did that. China, 1 hour of video games, kids. You cannot control yourselves. You're going to run the country into the fucking ground. 1 hour of video games for you per day. End of discussion. That's how it's working over there. We've all read those headlines together. Is that where we're going? Is that so? This is a very difficult minefield for a democratic government and populace to deal with. But I want to be fair about Facebook's creating the problem. I think is a bit strong. I mean, I think they're yes.
Tyler, you brought up a really good point, and it's that Facebook brought the grossness of humankind to the internet in a major way. You know what I mean? Like, it enabled that to happen. And I'm not saying it was them. They just became the platform where humanity could show itself, so to speak, if that makes any sense.
I wouldn't say they brought it there, but they turned it into a shopping mall.
Yeah, because also there was the whole originally, it wasn't algorithmic what would show up. It was all chronological. Your friend has a birthday announcement, it shows up, and then the next thing is your grandma, whatever. And it was more organic. But then pulling slot machine levers, integrating that into the platform so that folks would be triggered by FOMO, made it more than just bringing more food for the hungry masses, but more adding sugar and fat and all the things that make food more tasty and addictive.
Maybe I can add some context to that. I think what I think it's more this sort of bubble it creates because we all have a different experience, and it's the hyper personalization of aspect of the feed. I think that sometimes gives the impression that people live in a, how do you call it, like in an echo chamber. So, but by no means everyone wants to see some extreme content. So I think what we're missing sometimes is that everyone has their own experience, and yes, sometimes the fact that some people react more to some content actually fuels it because it goes higher in the ranking. But what's interesting is that, as Tyler was saying earlier, both sides have the impression that Facebook is sort of promoting content from um, the opposite side a little bit more. So, but I don't think there is the algorithm got worse in that capacity. It's a matter of offer and demand on the feed. But again, yes, the fact that everything is personalized maybe make people see some kind of content a bit more, along with 10,000 people commenting. It may increase the fact that they feel like they are right because there are other 10,000 people thinking exactly like them. So
from the TechCrunch article, it says,
Tyler,
yes,
you did something new today, and it's quite cool, and I thought it's worth mentioning
it's
about
not.
the live streaming on Twitter. It's not new?
It's not worth mentioning.
It's so cool.
So there's a quote here in the TechCrunch article that young people indicated that when they saw uplifting content or inspiring content, that could move them away from some other issues that they're struggling with, Davis said in the hearing. So one of the things that we're actually looking at is called nudges, where we would actually nudge someone who we saw potentially rabbit holing down content towards more uplifting or inspiring content. Okay. Well, your company has had this legislation in your possession for months, and you're testifying here today before the committee that we have to pass this legislation, says Senator Markey, I just feel that delay and obfuscation is the legislative strategy of Facebook, especially since Facebook has spent billions of dollars on marketing campaign calling on Congress to pass internet regulations, and Facebook purports to be committed to children's well-being. At the end of the hearing, Davis said she hopes the Senate will have hearings with companies that have kid-focused apps like TikTok. Yes, Chris. So she knows goddamn well that TikTok is far more egregious in this regard. Currently, Facebook has a Messenger Kids app, but TechCrunch, do a little editing here. You have a massive typo here. Facebook has a Messenger Kids app, but the company, and it's but it's Instagram, for the kid. TechCrunch needs to up its game here, and it has some serious grammar issues here. The Wall Street Journal has published 6 leaked documents from Facebook, the company itself. Okay, so all kinds of people tweeting about the aftermath of this Senate hearing. Here's some interesting blog post hearing. It says Facebook files don't show that the company's execs are evil or incompetent, but highlight their hubris in believing they can still get things back under control. Okay, and I think that's kind of the natural conclusion in all this, is that Facebook isn't. People think they're might be a bit greedy in putting profits as a main priority, and their users' well-being secondarily, and that's an issue they're going to have to prove with a new counter narrative. Wall Street Journal publishes 6 internal Facebook documents it used for its report. Okay, Facebook shares 2, and that was all from yesterday. Okay. So does anyone have a take on the Facebook Senate hearing yesterday, or the whistleblower coming on Sunday or next week? Oh, Amy Klobuchar took to Twitter. She says, companies like Facebook are not doing enough to protect our kids. Why didn't Facebook act when its research showed Instagram was harming teens? How far are they willing to go before drawing a line between profit and the safety of our children? Yeah, that nicely summarizes the gestalt of the entire issue. And Facebook has heard that. They've seen that tweet. They hear that message loud and clear. And it seems to me they're now aware and going to act very responsibly to address the concerns. Does anyone disagree with that?
I do, Tyler.
Well, I think they understand they don't have a choice. If they don't start acting in a very...
Do you think they didn't know this, brother?
That's not the issue. Everyone agrees they knew it.
They had no incentive to act about it.
Correct.
Now they do.
Now, exactly.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Everyone agrees they knew. Everyone knows they knew. They know they knew. There was no punishment, and now there's going to be a punishment if they don't get their shit straight. So they said, there is a teenage kid, Bobby, was being, a punk, and mom and dad have finally had enough and put their foot down, and this time they mean it. And so Bobby's got a choice. He's either going to get he's going to get grounded and lose the car keys for the weekend and lose his weekly allowance, or he's going to have to get his game together and show his parents that he's going to be a good little boy. And that's it. It's as simple as that. And I think,
I
think if you set up a game where people have to and do are simultaneously short-term oriented and trying to optimize profits, then the only way you're going to address that is by manipulating those two. If you impact their profits, then they will act. If you don't, they don't. And really, there's no other way outside of regulations to do it is the problem.
The question is what Congress is going to do. Facebook can do this or do that, but is Congress at a point here where they're going to be ready and able to act, or are they just going to keep having more of these kind of hearings?
Yeah, this is the issue where, Facebook either self-corrects, that would be by far the most expedient way to address this, or is the government going to force them to correct? Facebook would prefer to self-correct and trying, to preemptively stop the government from taking any kind of actions that could really rock their boat. So they're going to self-correct as much as they can bear to in anticipation of preemptively derailing the government from feeling the need to step in and take corrective actions. So
But
that's what.
in general, these entities self-correct only if that level of self-correction is better than actually being regulated.
Right.
So that's the dynamics.
Right.
And they might just say, I'm going to wait for regulations because it's going to be better than me going through the trouble.
Well, the other issue is they're a publicly traded company, and they have to, the self corrections they're willing to do are only what will not cause the market to, their own shares to sell. Right.
Right.
I see the marketplace eventually correcting itself here and the move towards decentralization ultimately being
I
a
think
better
that
solution than
I think the
regulation.
complexity with that is the time frame, because if eventually it's going to be too late, then action must be taken before the market will do it on its own course. And that's, I think, part of the problem with the market correction is that the market isn't quite perfect, and then it takes too long.
Well, the whole
Because
decentralized social network issue is a whole huge question mark in and of itself, because you're talking about now there's no potentially a decentralized social network, which we can expect to see. This seems to be where the momentum is going in entrepreneur developer land. Jack Dorsey himself and others have their mind and heart set on creating a decentralized social network system such that there is nobody to control the uh, essentially what's the real negative aspect is this rabbit holing effect, which the lady from Facebook correctly points out. Is what happens is some people get on these social media platforms and start rabbit holing down into bad stuff like binge ice cream eating, right? And what should Ben and Jerry's do about the fact that people are binge eating their fucking ice cream? Make
Well, Facebook is
make
also.
terrible
I'm
tasting
sorry.
ice cream, or really 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 small baby spoons? Or, but the problem is when you have decentralized networks, which are likely to come out quite soon. Jack Dorsey is spending most of his time working on enabling a decentralized social network, and now there is nothing. There's no moderation at all, ostensibly.
Well, the
I mean,
big problem
they
with
already exist.
decentralization is scale. Is that, I mean, one of the reasons Facebook stopped showing all the updates is because they couldn't scale it. So they had to start editorializing it. So that
Right,
meant an algorithm.
right.
And then the algorithm is obviously trying to optimize engagement. I think you could argue that it was, poorly optimized, but that's the reality, is that now if you go to decentralized, then it's also a question of who's got custody of your data. If you like self-host, well, then not everybody's going to be able to self-host. It's a really big problem. I don't think it's about to be solved anytime soon.
But
it's
also,
not, it won't be solved anytime soon, but I think there's a few key things here. One, every individual owns their own data, and now Facebook has to request permission to get your data, and you can turn that off if you want to.
I'm
I
so,
think
just
the
so
bigger
also
question is
they
like why
exist.
it has to.
There's Diaspora, there's Minds, there's Mastodon, there's probably
yes,
at least a dozen others. They just have not gotten traction compared to, Facebook and the others.
right,
I
I
wanted
was
to point
gonna
out
say
that
that
the stock
uh,
market is not a great control on them for two reasons. One, the stockholders generally just want to make money,
right,
and they only care if if the government's going to do something that's going to keep them from making money. But the other thing is Zuckerberg's got super voting stock.
yep,
So even if he didn't have super voting stock, then all of a sudden you'd have pressure on state pension funds and college endowments that own their stock
right,
to but they can't do anything because Zuckerberg's got super voting stock,
yes,
and I think that maybe the issue that people start focusing on, because the super voting stock is a problem for a lot of reasons, not just on Facebook, the fact that it exists at all, in other companies,
Well, it's hard to avoid that. But speaking of diaspora
it's
and
easy.
the
The
other
SEC could
alternatives,
pass a rule tomorrow. What do you mean it's hard to avoid? They could do that tomorrow.
oh,
They
but
could,
you could have shadow ownership, and I don't think it's regulatable personally.
it's absolutely relatable. It was my business I was in. This is you could do it tomorrow. The Securities and Exchange Commission or Congress, whichever it is, Tomorrow could basically say if you're a publicly traded company, it's one person, one vote. You could do it tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, so
But
You
pardon
mean
me, the
one share,
comment
one vote?
I did want to make was that if you consider alternatives like diaspora or what Jack Dorsey is going to want to do, is that now Facebook gets a lot of credit here for having built something that is really good. Others couldn't. Like their recommendation engine was better than Google Plus, than diaspora. The whole look and feel and design of the product is superior. That is not going to be easy to do. I mean, just like TikTok, it's superior. It's hard to replicate these things.
well, I think this is going to be really weird because a decentralized social network, if one becomes popular, governments are going to be shocked to find out they're not going to be able to regulate it the way they can with Facebook and the other social apps, and
Tyler, quickly wanted to say this, like why it had to come all the way to the legislature. I mean, the senators love to grill people. That's understandable. But, like this is a regulator's job. I mean, time and again, like all these tech companies has to actually come to the Senate to just be grilled. I mean, why can't it be, dealt with from the European, perspective, the way it's being dealt over there? It's just simply regulator's job. And I'm not talking about the SEC in terms of the actual legal structure of it. I'm talking about the pure,
it's very
technical
simple, Crown,
terms.
because they're optimized for engagement, but that engagement is self-harming because humans are stupid. The fundamental problem is humans are stupid. That's the fundamental problem.
Humans are gonna human, and that's the thing.
I just
And
have a quick
destroying
question,
schools.
Tyler. Just a quick question, and this is literally out of curiosity. And again, I just want to mention, I'm not speaking as a Facebook employee, but I'm curious to understand how is a decentralized network, assuming that has, let's say, 2 billion people, the trust and safety aspect. I'm just trying to
There
understand
isn't
how is
one.
that going to be fundamentally better, and
It won't be.
to
It'll be
which
tragically
extent that
worse.
doesn't cause a risk. I'm curious because I have no idea on the implementation of like the use case of a decentralized social media platform, but I'm genuinely interested in understanding how.
What's going to
So
I
be
think sometimes the
I would
market
relate
defines.
this. Sorry, I would relate this to OpenStreetMap, which I was involved in helping to create, and so that's a Wikipedia for maps. And the big thing that we ran into was, well, how can these crowdsourced maps ever be trusted or more accurate when anyone can just put in a piece of data? Tyler can put in, you know, Bangkok in a different latitude and longitude. Well, there's a crowdsourced system that's policing the whole thing, is the concept. And at least with OpenStreetMaps, it works.
But I'm just wondering, because even the difference between YouTube and a platform like Facebook is that on YouTube it's a one-way communication. Like you watch a video, you comment, but there's no back and forth conversation where more people can join. So I'm just wondering the moderation aspect of a conversational platform at scale, if it's decentralized, how could that be? How could that be managed?
What I have observed is that sometimes the market redefines what better means. So better, in fact, is abjectly worse in some ways, but it is minusculely better in some other ways. And that's exactly what the market wants, and it will go for it. And it
I
will
think my
make it
question is
happen.
more ensuring that humans become better, because I don't know if that makes sense, but the human nature is also a variable to take into account, and their willingness to act properly, if that makes sense.
We're kind of experiencing it here. The voice has so many inflections and emotion that get conveyed that the written word doesn't. And I think this connects in a different way. Sometimes you hear friends on here arguing, and you get to a point, it's like, man, I agree with you on so many things, but right now you're totally wrong. And those aren't the things that don't come out on Facebook. You instantly go to, you're a crackpot, you're this, you're that. And there's no connection before correction, I guess, is the word we use in parenting.
So I was right. I'm kicking myself. We didn't look at the Wired version of this whole issue. Now that I've opened it, their headline's quite interesting. The headline says, "The Senate is mad as hell at Facebook again. The latest hearing on Instagram and teen mental health was the depressing work of a legislator that can't legislate. Wow, perfectly. What a brilliantly pithy headline that is. Toward the end of Thursday's hearing on Facebook and teen mental health, Senator Dan Sullivan from Alaska alluded to the Chinese government's recent decision to impose strict limits on kids' video game time. He says they have told teenagers to take a real break, he says, addressing Facebook's head of global safety, Antigone Davis. Do you think the United States government needs to look at doing something like that? The moment was revealing. A law like China's would be unthinkably draconian in the US, yet Sullivan seemed almost wistful. Can you imagine a country that actually regulates its technology sector? You can see where Sullivan was coming from, because we sure don't live in that country. Congress has been hauling in Facebook executives to testify since early 2018 during the height of the Cambridge Analytica scandal. In those 3.5 years, it has passed precisely 0 laws significantly regulating the conduct of social media platforms. Instead, with some notable exceptions, it tends to do what it spent most of the last hearing doing, browbeating the companies into fixing things themselves. Thursday's hearing was prompted by a series of the Wall Street Journal trove to the hearing was styled as a cross between Watergate, what did Facebook know and when did it know it, and the corporate exposés of yesteryear. In his opening remarks, Senator Richard Blumenthal accused the company of hiding its own research and lying about what it knows. Facebook, he declared, has taken Big Tobacco's playbook. In fact, the research about teen mental health was hardly revelatory. Facebook sits on a massive trove of data about its recommendation algorithms, policy enforcement, and user behavior that is inaccessible to outside researchers. Some of the documents leaked to the journal appear to contain just that sort of data. One article in the series revealed that millions of people around the world are subject to white glove enforcement through Facebook's X-checks or cross-check system, leading to high-profile users getting away with flagrant and shocking violations of the platform's policy. Another article describes researchers finding that certain changes to the newsfeed algorithm had inadvertently rewarded misinformation, toxicity, and violent content. That's the kind of internal research that provides fresh insights into Facebook's effects on the world. The teen mental health research, not so much. The documents, it's genuinely unclear whether the senators at Thursday's hearings understand how pedestrian Facebook's data on teen mental health really is. Senator Ben Ray of New Mexico repeatedly pressed Davis on whether Facebook would release the data set minus any personally identifiable information on which the research was based, as if Facebook had been studying individual users rather than conducting polls and focus groups. Why did the Senate choose to focus on a subset of leaked Facebook documents that add little to what we really know and that the members didn't seem to understand particularly well? Perhaps because think of the children is a tried and true way to get both legislators and the American public to pay attention, whereas, say, human trafficking in Arab countries tragically is not. It's also clear enough why Thursday's hearing focused so heavily on what Facebook has done, is doing, and will do, and so little on what Congress itself could do to protect kids online. This is a legislative body that, thanks to the Republican intransigence, cannot reach an agreement to prevent the country from defaulting on its debts. Oh boy. I told you Wired was going to take Tech's side in this debate. It's really pointing out the hypocrisy of the government's inability to regulate itself and to moderate itself, even worse than what Facebook's doing. This is a very smart argument this journalist is making here. So this same group who's grilling Facebook, is guilty of far worse. It's about to send the entire world economy into the fucking toilet because it can't fix its own hygiene. Browbeating tech companies does work, at least to a point. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter have all made extensive changes in response to sustained criticism about their treatment of misinformation and abuse of their platforms. Earlier this week, after the uproar over the Wall Street Journal series, Instagram CEO said the company would stop that. And as some of the nation's most perspicuous observers have noted, self-regulation is a crucial component of fixing what's wrong with social media, but it's no excuse for Congress failing to wield its own power. Some Facebook critics have accused the company, perhaps hyperbolically, of behaving as if it were a nation state. Save some criticism for the real nation state. If Congress won't govern, big tech will. Okay, well, yeah, I was right on assuming Wired would take big tech's side in this, but it's an interesting point. Okay, we'll put a pin in that one and circle back. Then the number 2 article of today is TikTok launches Top Moments, an NFT collection featuring 6 quote-unquote culturally significant TikTok videos from creators including Lil Nas. TikTok is launching an NFT collection that will see its top content creators partner with top NFT creators. The newly announced TikTok Top Moments will feature 6 culturally significant TikTok videos. And as one of the NFTs from creators including Lil Nas and Gary Vaynerchuk and Curtis Roach, Jess a whole bunch of people I've never heard of, to be honest. I'm getting old. These creators will partner with coin artists and Grimes and others to create additional limited edition NFTs that celebrate their viral videos. According to TikTok, the proceeds from the NFT sales will largely go directly to the creators and NFT artists involved. However, proceeds from some of them will go to charity. Lil Nas will drop the first one of one NFT collection, and he'll collaborate with others. That will be made available. October 6th marks the start of the sale, but the videos will also be presented at the Museum of Moving Images. So people, TikTok creators, can make NFTs of their little TikToks. It's quite an interesting, not surprising, but very cool development. This whole idea of, because the little viral NFT, videos. Some NFTs are based on short little videos, like the NBA videos that have sold for an insane amount of money. And so TikTok creators probably were asking, why can't we make NFTs of our TikTok videos so that our fans can buy them, essentially? And now they can. So you can own somebody's TikTok video that they did a year ago, or this turns into an interesting question, because can they mint a TikTok that they did historically, or is this just for future video NFT productions? Because the question is, can I really own Puff Daddy's video that he made 5 years ago? It's in his account. He can delete it, but I own it? How does that work? I don't have access to his account. What if he deletes it? What if somebody logs in to his account, hacks his account, and deletes it? But I own that video. I have an NFT that shows I'm the owner of that video. You deleted my video. And by the way, he himself could sell an NFT of a video he made 5 years ago on TikTok and then say, thank you for the $1 million, and then promptly delete the video. And by the way,
And here's the NFT of the video of me deleting it.
by the way, this happened in Twitter. Jack Dorsey himself sold his very first tweet as an NFT. The tweet that says, setting up my Twitter. And that was the very first tweet. It sold for $2.1 million to CZ, the boss at what's that crypto exchange?
Binance.
Binance. And he paid a couple $1 million for that tweet, an NFT of that tweet. There were other people selling their tweets, and as the scenario I just painted out actually happened. Somebody paid $500,000 for a tweet, and then the tweet got deleted. And now the person's holding an empty box, a container, essentially, to a tweet that no longer exists, that says this tweet doesn't exist. So what are you buying exactly when you buy the NFT that says you now, quote unquote, own this video? It turns out, technically, you own a link to the video, to the tweet. Is that what you really thought you were buying, was a link to it? That's technically, on a technical basis, from an engineering basis, what you bought. So unless, in the case of the Christie's auctions with Beeple, he actually got the actual file of the image, right? That he sold that image to somebody for, what was that, $69 million or something crazy like that. But in that case, you actually have a somewhat physical asset. It's a digital physical asset. It's an actual file. So how's this going to work exactly? Is Puff Daddy? Yeah.
I think one of the things that needs to be clarified is the use cases for NFTs, because in those use cases, there's art, there's collectible, there's real estate. What else?
Medical
There's 5 use
devices.
cases. There's a number of use cases, and I actually went through some of these, and I will do another NFT basic room, because I like kind of taking it to an instructional level of understanding the foundation blocks to build on understanding
But give us
NFTs.
do a room on it. We can
Quickest,
go for an hour, but give us the 1 minute version.
the main thing is that it's 3 main points of an NFT. It's authenticity, provenance, and ownership. To the point of what you described about the tweet, yes, I mean that you're paying. It's hard to use with the tweet, because the tweet is a lot, and in this case I believe the tweet's a lot more technical, because you're basically have the provenance of the tweet's timestamp from the block, timestamp from when it came out, like Jack Dorsey's first ever tweet. You have the provenance of that for that piece in history, that time in history. Then no one, like, he doesn't have it anymore. It's now been sold. And that's what I understood on that piece. But to the people and to all the artists, it's their actual artwork, and the IP is theirs, because that's why so many of the lawyers are also very concerned with it, because of the IP. But what makes the IP of an artist is also the provenance, the authenticity, and proving of ownership. And to prove that, you could still keep the physical piece and put a digital piece out on the blockchain, and you still own the physical piece as an artist, but your digital rendering of that piece can be owned by multiple people, but they own that digital representation of the piece. They don't actually own the hard piece, and that artist could still do stuff with that piece, which is why the burnt Banksy situation was really kind of controversial for art collectors and folks alike, because they made a purchase of a Banksy of $150,000 in Florida. They made a video of the burning of that Banksy, and then they minted that video. But the Banksy was burnt on that video, and it went viral. It went viral. So the long and short of it is, those 3 main components are things you want to look at and question when you start seeing an NFT. And in the case of this tweet, I mean, if it's been deleted, that seems odd to me, because then that means Jack would have had to delete it or something, because it's his account.
Jack's wasn't the one that was deleted. It was a different one.
Because Jack Dorsey's tweet was minted. The very first tweet from when he tweeted on Twitter, he minted that himself. But if someone else tried to do the same thing and then the tweet was deleted, then in my opinion, they could be potentially SOL, shit out of luck, because whoever had the original tweet, that account, whatever it was, got deleted or got banned, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. I think the provenance and the authenticity of NFTs, especially if it is just digital, I think it's easier if there's a physical manifestation. But the digital alone has not been solved, in my view. There are startups who claim to have solved it or going to do it imminently, but they have not yet. And even if you buy it on one chain, it's hard to kind of make sure that it doesn't show up on another chain. It's just not there yet. However, there are instances where you can assure it, and then you better know what you're doing.
That's part of the provenance. That's part of the whole trifecta of NFTs, is that it's such a decentralized space, and they're trying to navigate the waters of the decentralization, marrying with the centralized bits that are required. As Tyler, holding files like audio files or graphic files, that takes a lot of power on a server and a lot of space. So it isn't going to be as easy for that storage to be decentralized.
Our friend Jeremiah Ouyang, who joins us often, has a tweet about this where he says, every social network will launch, house, and offer exchanges for NFTs. Here comes TikTok, kind of as the first. And I suspect he might be right, where when people post to their social app of choice, the app might they could essentially, that process could be minting of an NFT simultaneously, which would create the opportunity for all kinds of different scenarios with regard to intellectual property and ownership and use access, and there's all sorts of interesting contractual things
Correct.
that can happen in that case, and that the social platforms obviously are thinking about all of these issues as we speak. TikTok is sort of the first out of the gate, as Jeremiah says, with the sort of NFT scenario. Yeah, Chris?
You're going to see, and to Shaheen's point, he hit the nail right on the head. As we move into additive manufacturing and parts are made on the fly, you're going to need Boeing parts or something like that are certified, that are traceable, that have provenance trackable, and NFTs really align really well for this type of application.
Okay, so the next headline here is that the USB Implementers Forum issues a new USB-C certified logos that show if a cable or port supports 60 watt or 240 watt, hoping to solve customer confusion. Fantastic. The group responsible for the USB-C protocol has issued a new certified logos that show if a cable or port supports 60 watts or 240 watts. Because basically if it's 240 watts, that's enough power to power a laptop and other meaningful items. 60 watts is not. So there's going to be, you need to know, is this a 60 watt cable or a 240 watt cable? And that's going to be clear up a whole lot of confusion for a lot of people who are, why is this cable not working? Why is this cable working? They look identical. Yeah. So very clever, because USB-C cables can handle both power and data, and they handle power at different wattages. Some you can use to power laptops, some you cannot, and that needs to be clear so that you don't think your cable's broken. It's just rated for a different wattage. So now there will be a cute little logo to let you know if you have a 60 watt cable or a 240 watt cable. The next one is from CNBC that Zoom says it no longer plans to acquire cloud-based call center software maker Five9 following the FCC's review of the $14.7 billion deal on national security grounds. We covered this about, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where Zoom says they're going to buy this and acquire this cloud-based call center software maker from America called Five9 for $14.7 billion. And America said, not so fast. You're a Chinese company after all, or have Chinese roots. Your founder's Chinese by origin. Your data goes through China. We're not so sure we want you having this American company. And they were going to have a big investigation about it. And they were going to investigate Zoom to find out, should Zoom be able to do this? And Zoom now is announcing, forget it, never mind, we don't want it. Where's my X-Files music? Why is Zoom dropping its interest in this company when it's being revealed they were going to be investigated to see if everything's as kosher as Zoom claimed it is?
Foreign influence.
maybe they're a little afraid of that, what that investigation might reveal. And maybe we know why Zoom's not acquiring companies. Yes, Chris?
Maybe some Zoom calls and some tube-in sessions.
So let's see if CNBC comes to the same conclusions we do. I doubt they do. Five9 shareholders rejected Zoom's agreement to buy the cloud. Okay, so we were wrong. So basically, the company didn't want to be bought by Zoom, the shareholders anyway. They rejected Zoom's agreement to buy the cloud contact center software maker for what had been a $14.7 billion all-stock offer. Regulators with concerns about foreign participation were reviewing the planned deal. Zoom's agreement to buy the company was scuttled on Thursday after the shareholders rejected the deal. Zoom said in July that it was acquiring in an all-stock purchase its first billion-dollar-plus purchase, and at the time, the second biggest tech deal of the year. The company has now lost an opportunity to quickly broaden its capabilities. The shares fell 2%. Buying the Five9 presented an attractive means to bring our customers an integrated contact center offering. A branch of the U.S. Department of Justice was reviewing the deal out of concern about potential foreign participation, according to letters dated August 27th. While some large tech acquisitions, most notably the semiconductor industry, have been nixed of late by regulators, it's highly unusual for companies to willingly terminate their own deal. That's what got us curious. Proxy advisory company International Shareholder Services had recommended shareholders vote down the proposal. CNBC reported September 17th. Zoom went public just 2 years ago. Five9 also picked up customers. Five9 shareholders were ultimately unsatisfied with the small premium that Zoom was set to pay at the agreed upon price. They were also going to receive a 13% bump. Additionally, Zoom stock dropped 28% since the deal was announced, while the Five9 shares have fallen only 11% because it's a stock swap. Okay.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Yeah.
Has anyone even heard of Five9 and used it?
Never.
And it's worth $15 billion, and they said no.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a and is it's something. It's not nothing. Now
Well,
I
it's
get
debatable
the
whether
it's
it's
stock,
debatable
right?
whether it's worth 15 billion,
Yeah, it was
but
publicly
it's also
traded company. Yeah.
debatable whether it's also debatable whether a startup doubled its valuation in 6 months. So I just think there is a lot of money in the system for people who are making revenue, and these guys are making revenue.
Well, for sure. But then, I mean, in terms of the transaction,
Are
even if
you
there was,
referring to the startup Zoom?
yeah,
There are
The
too many
one
of them now.
the
Tyler
one
was
that
just
like the
talking
one
about
that
one
like
yesterday.
companies are spending thousands of dollars a year on?
Now, hang on.
Zoom?
So Faraz wants to go, but the market cap of the company, Five9, is currently just under 11 billion. And so Zoom was offering 14 what?
15ish.
14.7. It's currently trading at
In stock.
10.8.
Like have you seen what it costs to get a Zoom vanity account?
But
Like to
they were
get like
offering a 40% lift, but they were offering stock, right? Not cash. And then Zoom stock has gone down significantly.
yeah, 11%, I think, Tyler.
Yeah.
So, I mean, regardless, even if the deal had been signed at this point, from the perspective of the United States, right? And from the perspective of the company, first on the 11% drop, and then second on account of the Chinese regulatory issues, which is China can change their regulation at any given point in time. The deal could be changed at the last moment. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay.
that's fair.
That's all.
So
Yep.
next one up here. Let me just check the tweets really fast. Yeah. Okay. Next one is from The Verge. A look at the rise of employee dissent at Apple. Here's The Verge with another big tech hit piece. Yet again, Verge. What are you up to over there at The Verge? You got a whole bunch of a whole string. 2 days ago, you went after TikTok. Now you're fanning the flames on Apple dissent at Apple. So it says, a look at the rise of employee dissent at Apple, including pushback against returning to the office, fighting for pay equity, and increasing leaks. Okay, do you have any hot new leaks here? Let's see what you got here. Let's see here. Apple's fortress of secrecy is crumbling from the inside, is the headline. The last 5 months marked a turning point in Apple's company culture. Will it last? Yes, they're going to find out who the rotten parts of the apple are and cut it out. They can easily do that. They will do that to protect the world's most valuable company. They have all of the skills to do precisely that. They got rid of Ashley. Ashley was a bad apple, no pun intended. And they will find out who the other bad apples are and get them out. This is not rocket science, Verge. So, but it's the Verge is fanning the flames to try and, cause impact on Apple. This is this journalism or is this activism? That's a question I would pose to the audience here. Are they? Who's actually the problem? Is there actually a real problem, or is an article like this actually instigating the problem? Because they might, we'll see here. So here's a quote. Apple, it starts off by talking about the June 14th email Apple's remote work advocacy group sent an anonymous email to Tim Cook back in June. We all agree that we are here at Apple to make insanely great products that enrich people's lives around the world, they wrote. We are convinced that we can create the same and even better products by adding more flexibility to the announced return to the office policy. 2 weeks earlier, Cook had announced that after a difficult year working remotely, Apple was reopening its office. Starting in September, employees would be asked to return in person 3 days a week with an option to work from home on Wednesdays and Fridays. The news wasn't surprising. Apple's executive team had never pretended they wanted to go fully remote, but it didn't sit well with staff members who had moved away from Apple's offices during the pandemic and had little desire to go back. The tensions might have stayed at a low simmer were it not for a Slack channel called #Remote Work Advocacy, created in September 2020 to promote a more flexible working environment. By the summer of 2021, it had reached roughly 2,800 members, with conversations growing increasingly lively. After Cook made his announcement, employees knew they had to send a message. It was a small pushback against management that would lay the groundwork for months of employee organizing and perhaps change the Apple workforce forever. Apple's remote work struggle is emblematic of a deeper shift taking place inside the company. Since 1976, the tech giant has operated in largely the same way. Executives make decisions about how the company will function, and employees either fall in line or leave. What choice do they have? Apple's currently worth $2 trillion, making it the most valuable company in the world, as well as the most powerful. Over the past few months, however, that culture has started to erode. As workers across the tech industry advocate for more power, Apple's top-down management seems more out of touch than ever before. Now, a growing number of employees are organizing internally for change and speaking out about working conditions on Twitter. And here's a quote. There's a shift in the balance of power going on here, says Jason Snell, the former editor of Macworld, who's been covering Apple since 1990s. Not everyone is afraid that their boss at Apple is going to fire them. They're saying, I'm going to say some bad things about Apple, and if you move against me, it's going to look bad for you. The shift is due in part to the fact that the tech giant is 2 years into a radical new experiment, which is using Slack to letting employees communicate with each other, which is a tool. Where Apple employees previously worked in ultra-siloed teams with little opportunity to meet people outside their current projects or department, they now have a way to communicate with anyone across the company. Employees have discovered that individual work grievances are shared by people in entirely different parts of Apple. The details of these grievances vary. Some employees want the company to invest in internal tools to better protect their privacy. Others want transparency in how much people are paid. Many who've spoken to The Verge feel like Apple's employee relations team has been woefully inadequate in addressing their workplace concerns. The overarching desire, the thing that connects the tenured software engineer in Cupertino with the retail employee in New Jersey, is that employees want to feel heard. So far, it's not entirely clear Apple executives want to listen. And then it gives case examples, such as Ashley and whatnot. And boy, it's a very long, very, very, very long story. And it really focuses around our friend Ashley Gjovic, who went nuclear, as The Verge correctly says. Gjovic decided to go nuclear. Indeed, she did. Anyway, you're talking about a company with, 100,000 team members, and you're talking about one person that went nuclear on Twitter. Because COVID was very stressful and caused a lot of people did a lot of kind of crazy things during COVID, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. I'm not so sure you fanning the flames on this is going to work out to your interests, Verge. I think Apple might be a little more careful about sharing their upcoming product announcements with you. I think you just may have made a critical error here, Verge.
There was that one company that got blackballed because they reported on that iPhone that got found in the bar, right? So that's what's going to happen to The Verge.
That was too. Gizmodo. So back in the day, there was this was 2008 or 9ish when the iPhone 3, I believe that was, where somebody had left an iPhone at a bar and somebody gave it to a journalist from Gizmodo, and Steve Jobs got involved. And Steve's like, "Give me the phone back, or you're in deep shit." And that was like one of the few iPhone actual physical prototypes from an Apple employee who left it at a bar in Palo Alto, and it got in the hands of Gizmodo. And Steve contacted Gizmodo and said, "Don't make me flex on you and crush your fucking company like a bug in the ground. Give me the phone back pronto." Yeah. Yeah. So let's put it this way. The Verge needs Apple more than Apple needs The Verge. Apple doesn't give a shit about The Verge, and Verge is now kicking dust in Apple's face. I suspect this is actually going to exacerbate your demise, Verge. So, not that they shouldn't. I mean, but the reality here is this... Yeah, I guess this is journalism. They're just letting their readers know that Apple's internal culture is kind of having a little angsty moment here due to the fact that they've integrated a communication platform that lets everybody talk, which is Slack. And Apple's probably realizing, you know what, that might not have been a good idea, and they'll take it away. And then employees, by the way, their culture hasn't really changed. What's happened is you have, due to COVID, a new tool got put in place. It allows people to talk to each other in a new way they hadn't before. They realize they share, they're using it as the water cooler to share their frustrations during COVID, and they're attaching those frustrations to the company, and now they want to talk about it publicly. And I think it's a short-term issue, honestly.
To be fair, this isn't about Slack as much as it is about, like, this could have happened over Teams.
Yes.
So
it's a yeah, it's not Slack. Great point. This has nothing to do with Slack. It has to do with a tool that got put in place during COVID for people to vent about their frustrations during a very frustrating time. And now they need to decide if they want, just like everybody, if they want to go back to work and be part of this company that has a culture that they realize they might not want to be part of. So the next one from BBC, researchers say there's a flaw in Apple Pay that lets attackers make a Visa payment with a locked iPhone. Apple calls it a concern with a Visa system. That it's not fundamentally an Apple issue. It's more of a Visa issue. Large unauthorized contactless payments can be made on locked iPhones by exploiting how an Apple Pay feature is designed. Okay, next one. LinkedIn blocks the profiles of several U.S. journalists on its Chinese platform, citing prohibited content without specifying why. So this is interesting. LinkedIn is operating in China. That's truly interesting. It's one of the...
Yeah, I didn't.
So, and now Axios is reporting LinkedIn is blocking U.S. journalists' profiles in China. So if you're in China and you're using LinkedIn, you don't see these American journalists. I wonder why. Why can't I see American journalists who would love to know what's going on in China, who would love to talk with Chinese folks about what's going on in China? You know, just like they're doing in that last article where they're trying to talk to disgruntled employees. You know, like the previous 5 articles where all these tech journalists are super thirsty to talk with disgruntled employees, disgruntled Clubhouse users, disgruntled Clubhouse creators, as The Verge just did 2 days ago, disgruntled Apple employees. These journalists really have an interesting racket going where they like to talk to disgruntled people about the system of power that they're under. Hey, Chinese folks, are you disgruntled? We'd like to talk with you. Oh, gee, is that why their U.S. journalists are being blocked in China? I wonder if there's some connection here.
You know, I don't know if everyone else does, but I have a couple of vendors that add me every day from China. I'm going to start asking them what's going on over there.
LinkedIn blocked the profiles of several U.S. journalists from the company's China-based platform this week, citing quote-unquote prohibited content. My account was one of the profiles affected. So the author of this article from Axios names Bethany Allen, and so it says why it matters. LinkedIn is one of the only large American social media platforms to agree with the Chinese government's demands to censor content and is tasked its own employees with restricting what users in China can see. If LinkedIn's behavior is normalized, it sends a message to companies across the globe that it is business as usual to enforce Beijing's censorship demands globally, says PEN America CEO Susan Nozzle. This is a flashing red light that unless big tech firms like LinkedIn, which is owned by Microsoft, stand up to censorship, free speech worldwide will suffer. LinkedIn customer service sent me an email on September 27th stating that due to prohibited content in the summary section of my profile, the company was blocking my profile being viewable in China. Now, let's pause this article. This article is about to get very interesting here. But why is LinkedIn even tell? I think this is the critical mistake. Should LinkedIn even tell? Obviously, LinkedIn has to comply with China. If you know anything about China, China's going to tell LinkedIn, if you want to do business in China, you're going to have to do everything we say. LinkedIn says, you got it, boss. You the boss. You tell us what to do, we'll do it because we're greedy bastards. We want that money. So whatever you say, we're going to do. No questions. Got it? Got it. We got it. You tell us what to do. Great. Remove all the journalists. Got it. No problem. We'll remove all the journalists. Great. Remove all these people who have ever said anything negative about the CCP. Okay, great. You got it. Done. Remove all these other people for no reason. We don't even need to tell you the reason. You got it. We're going to remove them. No problem. Because we're greedy bastards, you got it. It's your country. We're going to do what you want. Now, the question is, should LinkedIn even tell these people whose profiles aren't visible in China that their profiles aren't visible in China? They're not in China. They're never going to know. You don't know that your profile is visible in China or not. You didn't even know LinkedIn's doing business in China. You didn't even know LinkedIn exists in China. You probably don't even care that your profile is not visible in China. Why should you care? Your profile wasn't visible in China before LinkedIn arrived in China. LinkedIn arrives in China. Your profile is still not visible in China. 2 years ago, when LinkedIn wasn't in China, your profile wasn't visible in China. They didn't exist in China. Your profile still isn't visible in China. What changed? Well, LinkedIn's doing some profiles are visible in China, not yours. Should you even know or care? Should LinkedIn notify you? I would argue, is LinkedIn have a responsibility to notify people? Hey, by the way, we just started doing business in China, but we're not showing your profile. Because the government, that's the government, it's their government, it's their country. They're a sovereign country, and they don't want your profile being showed in their country. So we don't show it. But should we be responsible for telling you that? That's the whole that thought as we read this article. So apparently, they are telling journalists that we removed your profile in China. So LinkedIn customer service sent the email saying that. And then Melissa Chan, a former China correspondent who now works as a journalist in Berlin, posted on Twitter that she had received a similar email as well. Greg Bruno, the author of a book about China's soft power against Tibetans, also posted on Twitter that he had received the email from LinkedIn. The LinkedIn profiles of numerous academics, researchers, government employees, and others around the world have been affected in recent months. Yes, obviously. This is hardly news to anybody. What they're saying, we're a global platform. Here's what LinkedIn is saying. We are a global platform that respects the laws that apply to us, including adhering to Chinese government regulations for our localized version of LinkedIn in China. LinkedIn told Axios in a statement, for members whose profile visibility is limited within China, their profiles are still visible across the rest of the globe where LinkedIn is available. But LinkedIn did not respond to questions about which content specifically was considered quote-unquote prohibited. Well, they don't know. That LinkedIn doesn't care. That's China's call, not LinkedIn's. Which Chinese law the content violated, and whether LinkedIn maintains an internal list of prohibited topics that it uses to proactively remove profiles. No, let me make this very clear for you, Axios journalist Bethany. China's not telling them which laws they're violating. China just says, here's an account, get rid of it. Bethany, China is not a rule of law nation. Maybe you noticed that the Canadian folks, the two gentlemen, the two Michaels, who were arrested and then released, that there's no rule of law here. This is not Bethany. You grew up in a country under rule of law. Other countries aren't the same. There's these things called dictatorships and authoritarian regimes. They don't follow rule of law, and China is one of such country, Bethany, and so it doesn't work that way in China. So, welcome to the big wide world here. So, yeah, your question is not applicable because your question implies the whole entire world works under the rule of law. It doesn't. So, no, you're not going to be told what law it violates because it doesn't. It's not a meaningful question. It doesn't have to violate a law. They can remove it because they don't like it. So, it says now, background, the Chinese government has long pushed U.S. internet companies to censor in order to remain in China's huge market, but U.S. companies initially refused. As a result, the websites of Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram have long been blocked in China. But in February 2014, LinkedIn agreed to China's demands for a filtered version of its professional networking platform, and in exchange, LinkedIn became one of the few U.S. social media companies with significant operations there. In 2019, LinkedIn had 44 million users in China, making it LinkedIn's third largest user base after the US with 150 and India with 52 million. In March 2021, China's internet regulators punished LinkedIn for failing to censor political content on its China-based platform, suspending new signups for a month and requiring the company to submit a self-review to the authorities. 3 months later, LinkedIn began aggressively censoring the LinkedIn profiles of prominent academics and journalists outside China whose profiles mentioned politically sensitive information, including the Tiananmen Square massacre. There you go. Simple as that. Yeah, China does censorship. Breaking news, this at 5. China's censoring things. Yes, Axios, China censors things. Yeah. So next one is from The Verge. Retailer Neiman Marcus says it notified 4.6 million customers that their personal info, including credit card numbers, may have been exposed in a data breach. Next one, Washington Post. Miami Coin, a crypto partnership with City Coins, unveiled in August that automatically allocates 30% of newly minted coins to Miami, has made $7.1 million for the city. The South Florida city of Miami is the first municipality to accept cryptocurrency contributions through City Coins, which the mayor says may one day take the place of taxes. Next one, TechCrunch. Facebook announces updates to Facebook Messenger, including group chats that can now work between Instagram and Facebook Messenger contacts. So they're merging the two platforms essentially in the back end. Next one, Vice says they have sources that ex-OnlyFans staff, angry old employees, this old game again, Vice? Are you doing this again? Vice has sources, former OnlyFans team members had access to highly sensitive user and user data, like bank statements, legal names, and KYC images long after leaving the company. Oh, OnlyFans. That's you got to do a little bit better there on policing your permissions systems with former employees. Addresses, full names, passports, bank statements, and other sensitive personal data were viewable. Well, that sucks. Okay, that's actually good journalism right there. And OnlyFans gets embarrassed, and everyone else learns an important lesson. And hey, what are we doing with our former? A lot of startups get into this game at some point, where what to do when you have your first person who leaves the company, and you don't really change much. You forget, you got to delete their email. Okay, well, there's actually a whole bunch, laundry list of hygiene that you have to go through when you have an employee leave, including all the access to all data and etc. And normally they don't address this issue until a former employee actually sneaks in and does something they shouldn't do, like go into your YouTube account and delete one of your videos or all the videos.
Tyler, this is a business,
Yeah.
an offloading business for
Yes.
companies.
Yeah, they
Really,
exist. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, but it's an interesting moment that every startup grapples with, and it's not often discussed. And this is an interesting example of it. And so they're getting called out for it publicly and having the laundry dried publicly. And but startups there needs to be easier, more. This needs to be a more common discussed aspect of startup land, of how to deal with offloading team members. So the next one's from TechCrunch. Active Surgical, which makes hardware agnostic software for minimum invasive surgical systems, raises $45 million. Mastro QA, whose machine learning powered software finds customer service interactions that should be reviewed by a manager, raises $25 million. Trial Spark, which wants to leverage its clinical trials management software in drug discovery, raises $156 million. Cred Avenue, an online marketplace for companies seeking loans, raises $90 million. Intel unveils a second generation neuromorphic computing chip, which is what exactly? And Lava, an open source framework for developing neuro-inspired applications. Intel today announced a major update to its neuromorphic computing program, including second generation chip called Lohi 2. And Lava, a couple Hawaiian themed names here. Along with Intel, researchers at IBM, HP, MIT, Purdue, and Stanford hope to leverage neuromorphic computing, circuits that mimic the human nervous system's biology, to develop supercomputers 1,000 times more powerful than any today. Custom-designed neuromorphic chips excel at constraint satisfaction problems, which require evaluating a large number of potential solutions to identify the one of the few that satisfy specific constraints. They've also been shown to rapidly identify the shortest paths in graphs and perform approximate image searches, as well as mathematically optimizing specific objectives over time in real-world optimization problems. Very cool. So they're working more like neurons on these chips, kind of synthetically replicating, kind of natural.
I think
That's
Cammy
right.
was talking about this
Yeah, this seems right
earlier.
up Cam's alley. Yeah,
They might be
Yeah,
asleep.
Canny would
I
know.
know Eli was in there, but he might be asleep too.
it's really interesting stuff. This next generation of computing. There was a headline yesterday as well about what was it? Not
DNA computing or DNA,
DNA
yeah, DNA
computing as well,
computing.
and DNA storage. It's getting wild, and it amazing how it highlights how both of these, this kind of neuro chips and DNA storage, and that we are ourselves fucking computers at the end of the day. We're highly evolved, kind of systems. It's quite amazing. Nature is just unbelievable.
But good at some things and not good at other things. So I think these neuromorphic ones are trying to address the stuff that is hard to do with traditional deep learning.
But amazing that like this is the cutting edge technology. Our technology is approaching, as it improves, it approaches more natural. It becomes more natural, like as it improves. If that makes sense.
Yes, in some ways,
Yeah.
But for the stuff that humans aren't very good at, like flying or doing math, then those other approaches are superior.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if this neuro processors and DNA storage enable even better math. I mean, essentially, we're going to make superhumans. Essentially, eventually, it's going to get more and more natural-like, or mimicking or synthetic nature, and
I don't expect they will replace existing approaches. I think they will complement it. So things like quantum computing and analog computing and neuromorphic and traditional deep learning with GPUs and kind of high density processing and traditional CPUs, they all are going to bandy together and do the part that they're good at. And I think that's how we'll kind of do a superior being down the road.
Neuromorphic chips and DNA computing and storage. It's wild. It's just totally wild stuff. Next up.
The exponential era, Tyler. Like literally in like
Yes.
3 months, we go from, oh yeah, we'll never be at brain level computing to, oh, it's here.
That's a great point. That shit comes fast when it comes. Forta, a security service aimed at smart contracts being spun out of blockchain cybersecurity startup, raises $23 million. Chinese AR company Nreal unveils their Nreal Air consumer glasses with micro OLED displays and iOS capabilities, shipping in December in Japan, China, and South Korea. Apple, for the first time, shares the top paid podcast subscriptions and free channels globally, counting devices that played at least 1 second of an episode. Sweden's Sinch, who have been sponsors of my events, and Andreas was the CEO, lovely dude, acquires Pathwire, the cloud-based email provider behind Mailgun, for $1.9 billion in cash and stock, setting up Sinch as a competitor to Twilio, which they've been working on for quite a while. And Latin America raised a record $6.5 billion in VC funding in the first half of 2021. Well done. Up from $4 billion in all of 2020. So already a 50% increase, 60% increase. Probably will get up to a 70% increase by the end, or maybe 80 by the end of the year, which is fantastic yearly growth for Latin America. Latin America is about to boom, y'all. And Mexico City-based Higo, which offers B2B payment service for small and medium businesses in Latin America, raises $23 million, led by Excel. There's a perfect example right there. There's 23 more for the Latin America fund there. AlphaSense, an enterprise search engine for marketplace intelligence, raises $180 million by Goldman Sachs. And that itself is interesting, that how Goldman Sachs is starting to get more into startup land. Materialize, which is developing an SQL database service for streaming data, raises $60 million. And what else here? Oh, Alloy, which offers identity verification for the financial service industry, raises $100 million at a $1.3 billion valuation. And Massachusetts-based Catalog, which claims to be developing DNA-based computing platform, raises $35 million. That's the one we talked about yesterday. There it is. And then Fairphone, which makes an ethically sourced modular phones. Hold that word in your little beautiful head. Modular phones. Announces Fairphone 4 for about $650 with the specs that are really very similar to the new iPhone for less than the iPhone. But the interesting bit is it's intentionally designed to make it incredibly simple and cheap to upgrade the individual components of the phone, hence the word modular phone. So they're actually encouraging you to not buy a new phone every year. They're encouraging you to upgrade the modules, the components, the screen, or the battery, or the camera as you wish to suit your needs. And that could be a really interesting kind of decentralized type of play, although it's centralized. It's one company who owns it, but it's very interesting concept. This idea of and there's a long precedence around making our own computers. You know, where you go into the store, you buy the shell, you buy the hard drive, and you buy a Seagate hard drive, and then you buy some memory, and then you buy a monitor, and it's modular. So why shouldn't smartphones be the same? And the modular computer systems, it would be interesting to see what percentage of computer sales are out of the box solutions like Gateway and Dell versus homemade modular systems. What percentage of the PC market was self-assembled, modular systems? And then what percentage of smartphones today are modular? Zero, basically. But what percent will it likely be? It could be very interesting. Okay, those are your top headlines of today that your cousins and coworkers will be talking about soon. And now we get to get into the tweets. And Chris, you sent in an interesting one about hydrogen. A U.S. startup called HQuest says its emissions-free microwave plasma technology will turn methane into hydrogen. And they say we will make zero carbon dioxide hydrogen from natural gas so cheaply we could give it away for free.
Yeah, I mean, it's just they're using microwaves again. It's this RF really coming front and center. It's expanding its use in technology everywhere. So this is exciting for me.
Okay, and then
It sounds like they're kind of doing plasma enhanced CVD, and the carbon becomes solid, and the hydrogen is kind of a waste
Exactly.
product from that process. But if you concentrate it, it's a useful product.
the Gizmodo reports that so much ice has melted that the Earth's crust is shifting. So nowhere to escape from climate change. Even the Earth's crust is feeling the impact of the rising temperatures and melting ice. Twitch adds a phone verification option to fight bot attacks, as they should. A lot of people talking about the Astro Amazon robot. And DeepMind, the AI team out of London that Google acquired, DeepMind AI can accurately predict if it will rain in the next 90 minutes. AI software developed by DeepMind and the Metropolitan Office in the UK can predict whether it will rain within 90 minutes more accurately. That's a nice use of AI there. And I'm going to Montreal. Ticked off Genshin Impact players go on review bomb spree. Player frustration with stingy anniversary rewards boil over into the review bombing other games too, according to Kotaku. It's a gaming issue. An agrihood, like an agriculture neighborhood, puts a farm in the center of a Silicon Valley housing area. This is the future right here. I just tweeted it from Evan. Evan, are you on stage with us to share this one? This is brilliant. You're going to start seeing farms built into neighborhoods. This is genius. Why did we ever get away from this? Is Evan with us? No. So I just tweeted the photos of it. You can see it. And it shows an apartment complex, which everyone knows what, an apartment complex. You have a common space in the middle, for your dog to take a piss in the morning, whatever. And then now you're going to have a little farm. And every development, with 100 apartment blocks are going to need to have a little space for the community farm for people to grow their own food. That's the real freaking future right there. Why did we ever get away from that? Seashell glass might be the secret ingredient for unbreakable iPhone screens. Just tweeting this out. I think that we know what that article is going to say. the seashell glass inside of seashells is the strongest biological material, kind of ideal in absorbing shocks and whatnot. Very cool. Faraz,
And it's called Knacker.
Yeah. And there's other interesting updates in that space about biologically generated plastic alternatives that are grown in a lab. Basically, you can biologically grow this new process through enzymes that can make iPhone screen replacements that are not plastic, but are in some ways superior to plastic and cost effective with plastic. So nature winning again. Faraz, do you want to comment on the Dubai 2020, Expo 2020? It's kicking off now, I guess. I'm starting to see a bunch of headlines about Dubai 2020.
I have no comments. Thanks.
Okay. And what else we got here? Basquiat's famous artwork Warrior to sell for $25 million at Sotheby's auction. A never before sold painting in Jean-Michel Basquiat's Warrior series is estimated to sell for 19 to 25 million at Sotheby's auction. Okay. India to energize its presence at Expo 2020 Dubai with startup play. It says Indian participants will also include some of the leading investment banks as part of the government strategy to generate attention there at this massive World Expo going on in Dubai at the moment. Yeah.
Ethiopia also, I think they have a lot of delegation in Dubai, including the Ethiopian Tourism Commission introducing Lucy, the oldest human being, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, not I guess, for real, 3 million years old human fossil. And also a lot of export companies trying to get business relationships. That's it.
And then Johan shared an article about electromagnetic warfare emerging. And I just tweeted it out. It's basically China just announced yesterday they have plans to weaponize EMPs, electromagnetic pulse bombs, to take out satellite and telecommunication systems as a first move in a potential hot war scenario, because there will be no physical casualties, but attacking the communications infrastructure. That happened even before we were using satellites to use, when back in the World War days, yeah, you would attack the communication infrastructure first. It just makes a lot of sense. No casualties, but incredibly impactful. And the new way to do that, now that communication is being done up in the stratosphere, up in orbit, is the satellites. So you need to attack the satellites first, because that's where the cameras are that show what's going on the ground. And so,
To be fair, you have the kids attack the bathrooms first.
say again.
You have the kids attack the bathrooms first.
That's step one. The TikTok viral campaign to have all the kids destroy the school bathrooms. But yeah, the EMP, it was an interesting headline that Johan just shared. So I shared that one. Google engineer designs a workbook teaching early readers how to code without a screen, using a workbook. And I just tweeted it out so you can see it. And data reveals that China's BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, places many countries into unsustainable debt that increases concerns over sustainability. Sylvan shares this incredibly obvious headline that a company did some analysis. It's called Aid Data's new data set of 13,427 Chinese development projects. That's a lot of them. That's a lot of development projects. And the analysis, based on massive new data set 4 years in the making, includes a special focus on China's Belt and Road Initiative. And they conclude that China's Belt and Road Initiative places many countries into unsustainable debt. Yeah, that's the whole point of the plan. That's by design. That's the whole point. That's what the whole intent of the program was to do. And now are you a little, are we supposed to be surprised? They put they put sugar in the peanut butter to make it sweeter, so you would eat more. Yeah, that's the whole point. That's the point. Yeah, the BRI is intended to put countries into unsustainable debt. Yes, so that you have to hand back over the development project and your port. Ask the Sri Lankans. Ask the Sri Lankans why they don't own the port that China built for them. Why does China now own the port that China built in Sri Lanka? Yeah, this is not rocket science. U.S. should do exactly opposite of China on crypto, says Andreessen Horowitz. At CNBC's Delivering Alpha conference on Wednesday, investor Katie Hahn from Andreessen Horowitz said that the U.S. should see China as a cautionary tale when it comes to crypto. And we should do the exact opposite. We should embrace Bitcoin full on. And then Evan found a really interesting photos that you got to see of what's happening in Finland, where a Finnish city is installing micro offices in the forests for true remote working. So they built this cute little desk that they then attach to trees in the forest so that you can go work in the forest and have a desk in the forest. And you have to see it from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. So you now got an office out there in the middle of nowhere. And what else do we got here? Tesla Shanghai to make 300,000 cars from January to September, despite the chip shortages. The factory makes the electric Model 3 sedans and Model Y crossovers for domestic and international markets, including Germany and Japan. Spotify doubles down on advertising offering with a new global campaign. Let's check this out. The Spotify has launched its first ever global brand campaign for Spotify advertising, aiming to show advertisers what it means to reach a full immersed audience. Digital audio advertising has hit the main stage, with digital audio content consumption on the rise and showing no signs of slowing down. What's more, according to a new study, Spotify found that digital audio is more immersive and engaging than social media, digital video, TV, or radio. It's a superior advertising platform because they're listening to podcasts, they're listening to music, and they're more attentive to your ad. The data shows. If you want to catch people's attention, don't do YouTube videos. They're not watching that. They tune that shit out. Advertise on audio. Advertise on Spotify. We've got an ad network. We can put you in front of the right people. So, Spotify advertising is exciting advertisers, publishers, and creators about the opportunity to reach a more engaged audience in its first global brand campaign called All Ears on You. How clever. The campaign, created in partnership with FCB New York, imagines that the Spotify experience as a moment where each listener is immersed in Spotify as they go about their day, protected from the noise and distractions of everyday life. The campaign will be brought to life across digital video, etc. Yeah, they're letting everyone know they've got an ad network and can target users and get better results than video or images. Pretty clever. And it has huge implications for everyone in this room potentially, because social audio, the question is, how will it monetize? Everyone keeps asking Spotify in their weekly.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. So the question is, could you build an ad network into social audio? Of course you can. The question is, what's the optimum way to do that? I believe, based on YouTube's success, that the way to do it is to put a short audio ad just like you have in YouTube. At the beginning of a YouTube video, they play you a short ad, which you can skip over if you want. You could do the same before entering any Clubhouse room. And I, as the Clubhouse room creator, could turn on ads for my rooms. And if people listen to those ads, I get part of that money. Make sense? When we do tech news around the world each day, you could say we do 3 hours. During that 3 hours, we get thousands of people who come into the room. That's thousands of ad listens. How much money could I get from those thousands of ad listens? Probably enough to make it worth my while to do the rooms. And then you've unlocked the content problem. Now you've got everybody could stop working as baristas and porta potty cleaners and start doing their own Clubhouse rooms professionally. And make no mistake, for those who don't remember, those young whippersnappers who might be listening, when YouTube started, for the first 2 years, it was cat videos, almost exclusively. Totally benign, stupid content. Far worse than even the uninspiring content that you might accuse Clubhouse of having from time to time. YouTube content was ridiculously stupid for the first few years until money came along. And then all of a sudden people realize, oh shit, I can make money there. And now I have an incentive to actually show content that people actually want to watch. And then you solve your content problem as a content platform. So the question is, should we bring money to Clubhouse? And when Clubhouse even started talking about bringing money, there were rooms all day and all night. Oh no, it's going to ruin Clubhouse. Well, we had the same argument in blogging. When blogging started, there was no advertising. And then my buddy Jason, who invited me into Clubhouse, click on my bio to see Jason's bio. He's at Jason on Twitter and at Jason on Instagram. He was the first person to put an ad on a blog. And the blogosphere, at the time as it was called, said, oh, sweet Jesus, holy no, you just killed blogging. You put an ad on a blog. And he says, no, this is going to be a good thing. You're going to see. And he was right. It made the internet, a lot of what the internet is today is that. So then YouTube added monetization, and Clubhouse eventually will have to add in some kind of monetization. The question is, as I'm describing it, it potentially could be a great thing. You potentially could get people who have actually interesting things to say and do, better content creators will come in if they have a financial incentive to do so, just like YouTube. And if
I
there's
like having the premium on as well,
right,
where you can skip the
right.
ads,
If you
and
don't
then
like,
that
yeah,
also gets shared.
you don't like the ad, pay the fucking money. You're a privileged person living in the West. You make more than $1 a month. Great, pay to make the ads go away.
So I don't know if this is confirmed, but there are kind of inklings that sometimes when you're on YouTube, they'll throw in some of your less less hygienic search history to kind of encourage you to pick up that premium subscription. Meaning, sometimes you might be watching a family show and some of your other types of search media kind of comes up as the ads. I don't know if this is, I haven't physically witnessed it, but there are descriptions of it happening, and that people saying, okay, that's what forced me to sign up for premium, is that the a porn ad popped up while I was watching YouTube.
Ashley Madison would be even more classic if they still existed.
So who's in favor of ads in Clubhouse? Well, on the face of it, no one's going to say, yeah, I love ads, bring ads. But what you do love is if Clubhouse was full of rooms of awesome content creators. And what will likely enable that is ads that you can skip, that you can pay a couple dollars a month to completely remove, or click the skip button and just jump into the room. But
It,
I think adding
the
ads
thing,
could be the best thing that Clubhouse could do.
I was just saying, Tyler, I think it's inevitable.
Of course, it's inevitable. They have to make money somehow.
And then they're going to look for creating content themselves through celebrities and what have you.
Clubhouse is going to make money themselves by how? What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, there was an article today, maybe you talked about it, I don't know, about Patreon
Uh-huh.
getting celebrities like Will Smith and so forth. So they're getting into the content creation business, Patreon, that is. And I can
Yes.
see Clubhouse doing something similar.
Yeah, Clubhouse would have been the
As well go
perfect
Netflix.
Patreon.
I don't quite follow you. Why would Clubhouse get into content creation?
Well, the Patreon part is like, you need skills, you need one-on-one. Like, for example, Tyler, we had a nice call, a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
You could easily do that, as a pitch room and charge for it, right?
No, I understand that. Yes, exactly. But why would Clubhouse, as the company, is the platform?
Oh, okay. I know
Typically,
what you mean. Crowd
platforms
sourcing.
like don't want to compete with their own users.
Well, for example, that's true. But for example, if you,
Netflix.
let's just
Netflix
say that
does.
they said, okay, now we want to get Will Smith having his own room. So we're going to pay Will Smith, and that's not going to compete with Tyler or, whoever else. And
Craig, they're
now Will
doing this
Smith is
already.
going to
They're
have his.
paying the NFL. They've already done deals like this with the NFL. That's what the NFL room deal was all about.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but that's not. I wouldn't call that Clubhouse creating its own content. It's just that they're willing to incentivize premium content creators to come on their platform, which they kind of need to do in the early days to get the whole ball rolling. But I think a fair assessment of that is that that's going to be very challenging. It seems to be not necessarily having the ideal results thus far. I think adding an ad network, which is not easy to do technologically from a developer standpoint, but I think that's you know could be a way to solve the problem. That certainly benefited YouTube when they brought monetization to YouTube, and I think a lot of the content creators on YouTube wouldn't be there if they weren't being paid. I think it wouldn't totally go back to cat videos, but in large part, a lot of the content that we that I enjoy on YouTube wouldn't be there if they weren't monetizing. So the fact that there's no monetization here is probably similar. That's why people complain about the lack of good content here. Well, there's no monetization here. And if you took away monetization from YouTube, you'd probably lose a lot of the good content in YouTube too. And so Amazon settles with activist workers who say they were illegally fired, but we don't know the details of that settlement. And what else here? We went in depth on that article last time we were here. What else have we got here? What is LA's most beloved landmark? That's not totally tech news, but I'm an LA geek, so that was interesting to me. And somebody sent in a video of a very interesting robot video that I'm just tweeting out here. There's a whole bunch.
What is the most beloved landmark in LA?
I just tweeted this one out. It's from Sylvan. And I would have to say it's
I'll check it out.
Either Griffith
Hollywood
Observatory
side?
or I would say the Getty Museum. Or the Getty Villas over in Malibu are pretty cool. That's a nice hang over there. Or, yeah, the hiking trails over in Malibu are Solstice Canyon.
Topanga Canyon.
Topanga Canyon's dope too, yeah. What else here? Whole bunch of robot videos. A Dutch city is planting flower gardens on bus stops to provide small ecosystems for bees, bringing nature back into the cities. And somebody found a fantastic video of a robotic arms playing keyboards, making music. Just tweeting that one out. The UAE central bank shows digital currency ease cross-border payments. Yes, that's what digital currencies are much preferable for cross-border stuff. And then someone sent in an amazing video of a train that turns into an airplane. Yes, you heard that correct. It's a train that turns into an airplane. You can say, but you have to see it. I just tweeted it out. And the self-driving BMW motorbike is back in the news. Autonomous motorbikes. It's a motorbike driving down the road without a rider, driving itself, coming to a complete stop, flipping its kickstand and parking all by itself. Just wait until it brings you your Amazon orders. United Airlines is terminating about 600 employees for refusing to comply with its vaccination requirements. And what else is here? The giant 3D cat advert in Tokyo is back in the news here. And Cheryl, you said that's in Shinjuku or in Shibuya? Looks like Shinjuku in the video I'm watching. It is Shinjuku. Okay.
Yes, it's in Shinjuku. Sorry, I couldn't unmute.
That's right.
Yeah, Shinjuku. I checked, yeah.
And then artificial intelligence brings better hurricane predictions. We just read about how the AI team in London from Alpha DeepMind was predicting rain, and now Evan sends in this article that it's also better at predicting hurricanes. And so Florian, you're on stage here, Florian? Yes. Mr. Florian.
Yes, I'm here. Absolutely, I'm here. Absolutely.
You want to do the tech inclusion room?
Yes, at whatever time is good for you.
I think good. We just went over the top of the hour. I think we should do it.
Awesome. I just texted you actually on Twitter as we speak. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Let me move over and start it.
Okay.
Perfect.
So we will join Florian for the tech inclusion news as we do. And more than 60% of PC owners haven't ever heard of Windows 11. That's kind of the Windows' new operating system that they've been spending years making, and Windows users have no idea what it is. That's quite an interesting headline. Macy's wants to block Amazon ads from a giant billboard next to their store. And they have a lawsuit. And the department store Macy's said there has been a restrictive covenant in place since 1963, barring the billboard space from being used, I guess, for competitors. This is from NPR. That's kind of interesting. The World Health Organization finds its Ebola staff abused women. Humbled and heartbroken. An inquiry commissioned by the WHO, World Health Organization, details sexual abuse, including rape, during the Democratic Republic of Congo outbreak of Ebola. That's indeed humbling and heartbreaking.
The room is ready.
Yeah, okay. CNN, last one here, says that the workers who keep the global supply chains moving are warning seafarers, truck drivers, and airline workers have endured quarantines, travel restrictions, and complex COVID-19. And what are they warning? This could be a good one here. Good one to end on. Oh, the workers who keep the global supply chains moving are warning of a systems collapse. Seafarers, truck drivers. Oh my God. CNN. And always with your fucking autoplay. Seafarers, truck drivers, and airline workers have endured quarantines, travel restrictions, complex COVID-19 vaccinations, and testing requirements to keep stretched supply chains moving during the pandemic. But many are now reaching their breaking point, posing yet another threat to the badly tangled network of ports, container vessels, and trucking companies that moves goods around the world. In an open letter this week, Wednesday, to heads of state attending the United Nations General Assembly, the biggest gathering of bosses on the planet every year in September on First Avenue, New York City, Manhattan, where all the prime ministers gather, where they just gathered last week. So in this open letter, the International Chamber of Shipping and other industry groups warned of a global transport system collapse if governments do not restore freedom of movement to transport workers and give them priority to receive vaccines recognized by the World Health Organization. Global supply chains are beginning to buckle as 2 years' worth of strain on transport workers take their toll, the group wrote. The letter has also been signed by the International Air Transportation Authority, the International Road Transportation Union, and the International Transport Workers Federation. Together, they represent 65 million transport workers globally. Here's the quote. All transport sectors are also seeing a shortage of workers and expect more to leave as a result of the poor treatment millions have faced during the pandemic, putting the supply chain under greater risk. Guy Platten, Secretary General of the ICS, said that worker shortages are likely to worsen towards the end of the year because seafarers may not want to commit to new contracts and risk not making it home for Christmas given port shutdowns and constant changes to travel restrictions. That will heap pressure on stretched supply chains and could, for example, worsen current challenges with food and fuel supplies, most notably in the UK, which already have a shortage of food and fuel supplies. The global supply chain is very fragile and depends as much on a seafarer from the Philippines as it does on a truck driver to deliver goods, added Stephen Colton, ITF Secretary General. This time has come for heads of government to respond to these workers' needs. When Karen Marshall and her crew were told that they wouldn't be allowed to go on shore upon docking in Hokkaido, Japan, it was a big hit to morale. None of us knew how long it would go on for, the 28-year-old chief officer of a car-carrying ship told CNN Business. That was more than 18 months ago. Marshall and hundreds of thousands of seafarers like her have not been permitted to shore leave since. After weeks on board a ship, a couple of hours on shore provides much needed respite, but seafarers can only leave the vessel in order to travel elsewhere, usually to return home. Marshall considers herself one of the lucky ones because she has at least been able to make it home to the United States. There are people who have been stuck at sea for over a year. Early in the pandemic, many seafarers agreed to extend their contracts by several months to keep supplies and food, fuel, medicine, and other consumer goods flowing around the world. The grounding of planes and border closures have made it almost impossible to move workers from one part of the world to the other and swap crews. At the peak of the crisis in 2020, 400,000 seafarers were unable to leave their ships for routine changeovers, some working for as long as 18 months beyond the end of their initial contracts, according to the ICS. While these numbers have improved, crew changes remain a major challenge. Some travel restrictions were reimposed as a result of the COVID Delta variant, and transport workers continue to face a myriad of vaccine and testing requirements just to do their jobs. Often these are imposed at the moment's notice. Inconsistent requirements mean that some seafarers have been vaccinated multiple times because some countries have approved only certain vaccines. He knows of at least one seafarer who has received 6 vaccine doses or 3 2-dose regimens. It's an absolute nightmare. I can't understand why we don't have some sort of global standard. Meanwhile, the unequal distribution of vaccines globally means that only 25 to 30% of seafarers, many of whom are from India or the Philippines, are fully vaccinated. Seafarers run the shipping industry, yet they have not been given the priority of frontline workers, says the containers. If you want the world to keep moving, you need to relax travel restrictions. Global supply chains. They're warning the UN General Assembly that the global supply chain system could collapse.
This is really funny that the movement of people is now in the way of the movement of goods.
Are you saying we need autonomous shipping?
I'm just saying that I guess you're right.
So quick point, when you started on this story, I decided to look at what the Baltic Dry Index is. It's going up fast.
The what?
So the Baltic Dry Index is kind of like an index of the cost of shipping, overseas shipping. And it's going up really fast. It's the highest it's been at least since 2017, which is the 5-year graph, and it's going up fast.
But that's
apparently
Baltic.
there are something like 72 ships waiting in line in LA to unload.
But that's Baltic, right, Eli? So like what we're seeing is
it's global shipping. That's just where the index is
that's the index.
housed.
But we're seeing the eastbound rates just going insane.
Well, it could get to be weaponized against China because China's so dependent on import and export.
Yeah, and the containers or the ships that sit in contango, for lack of a better word, can't go back to pick up more stuff.
No, but also Shanghai ports actually are crowded too, right? They're overstocked. That's what the last, I think, report came out like a month ago. But the only other thing too is, have you noticed the Amazon products? They are cheap quality, and I don't know why people are buying those, because that's actually driving, unless they're in warehouses sitting here. Otherwise, we're wasting shipping, basically space by shipping all these crappy products across when it's a time of a pandemic. I'm just wondering why no one has not really like legislated that, certain products should not be even shipped. Like, we're using valuable resources to ship crap around the world.
You
I'm just
imagine
wondering.
there's a relationship between legislation and sanity.
Yeah, true.
And I want my dollar store stuff, Hammond.
Yeah, but still.
Okay, so we're gonna head over to the tech inclusion news around the world with Florian and Messi and Chris Fornoff's over there, so it'll be good times over there.
Let's go.
So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you. Take a Subway break, eat fresh, and we'll see you in about 5.5 hours.
Yep, see you later.
Alrighty.